Welcome to the Givology Impact Series podcast, in which we share the experiences and inspirations of social entrepreneurs and change makers around the world in education. I'm Alina, your host for today. We're delighted to have Rayna Carruthers, a documentary photographer based out of Edinburgh, Scotland. Rayna recently accompanied one of our longtime partners, Peach Foundation, to Mae Sot, Thailand, where she was able to document some of the incredible stories and people she came across. These photographs will be on display as part of Givology and Peach Foundation's art exhibition. Stay tuned for more information. First, welcome, Rayna. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, yeah. My name is Rayna. I'm a photographer from Scotland. I'm currently based in Edinburgh. I'm studying at the University of Edinburgh. I study social anthropology. I am a photographer that's interested in stories about migration and, yeah, stories about the human experience in general. Yeah, I hope that is a good introduction.
Yeah, of course. It's perfect. Yeah, I guess our first question for today is how did you and Peach Foundation first become connected?
Yeah, so I've been doing photography for a while now, but this last year I've been doing more freelance work. Um, and so I had a colleague who had sent along an email that she'd been sent by Peach Foundation asking for a photographer to accompany some volunteers on a summer camp in Thailand. She didn't feel that it was a good fit for her. So she sent the email along to me. And yeah, recently I've been doing a lot of stories, or my personal documentary stories have been about migration. So I was focusing on migration and its effects in the Middle East. And so she sent this along thinking it might be a good fit, you know, the effects of migration, but in a different setting, a different country. And also I was really interested to see that it was looking at migration through the lens of education. I'd never explored that before. So I was just really excited after seeing the email about the opportunity. And yeah, just decided to go along with them.
Yeah, I think it's actually really interesting about like your focus on migration.
Mm.
I think it's like such an important story to like show and like convey to other people. So I know both Peach and Givology were really lucky to have you as a photographer for them.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. So what was the process like to be able to go on this trip or and like attend the Peach Foundation camp?
Yeah, so I got a flight basically to Thailand and I met up with the volunteers that were also there. So I was going to be accompanying a group of volunteers and people with the Peach Foundation, working with them to basically complete a summer program, a summer camp in some of the migrant schools in Mae Sot in Thailand. So I was on the bus with them from Bangkok to Mae Sot. It was an 8-hour bus ride. And then we were staying in the same hotel, eating at the same places.
Mhm.
So it was great to get to know some of the volunteers, and some of them had been working with Peach Foundation since its beginning. So it was really interesting to get the story from them about how Peach had started in China, also to see some of the differences between their work in China and then their work in Thailand. I also got to spend some time with someone who works for Peach called Tina, and she um, was one of the first children to be sponsored by the Peach Foundation.
Wow.
And now she's working for the Peach Foundation. So she took me around everywhere for the 10 days,
Mhm.
exploring the different schools in Thailand. And it was cool to see, somebody who's really benefited from the Peach Foundation get to talk to the kids about the possibilities for their future. Yeah, how they can, yeah, they're just like what they can dream for, basically. So that
Mhm.
was really cool to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's like really interesting that you were able to like meet up with a former Peach student who like got involved in like the foundation themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely like something really cool to see. Just kind of like a real life impact that Peach
Hmm.
has on like these students. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And especially I think when we went into schools, like obviously I can introduce myself as, oh, I'm a photographer, I want to know this. But when Tina was introducing herself, yeah, she just got a different reaction, which was cool to see.
Definitely. I can definitely imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And could you elaborate a little more on like the situation currently going on in Myanmar, with all these students, and how would you say like these students are affected in their education and everyday life?
Yeah, so the conflict in Myanmar has a long history and it's complicated, but um, basically, since Myanmar gained independence from the UK, there's been some form of conflict going on. That all came to a head in 2021 when there was a military coup that happened. So um, that meant that there was a new government that was put in place, there was new officials, and there was a state of emergency declared in the country. Because of that situation, there was mass protests throughout the country, and those mass protests were met with violence from the Burmese army. So because of that, there's now estimated to be over 2.9 million internally displaced people,
Mhm.
and there are over 80,000 registered refugees in Thailand from Myanmar. I feel like this is a conservative figure because the people that Peach were working with
Mhm.
are unregistered refugees. And yeah, in each school I went to, there was maybe 1,000 students in that school. So yeah, in 14 schools, there's 1,000 students in 14 schools, and then you think about their families, and you can see that the number would be a lot bigger than that. And yeah, because of the political instability and violence that's happening in Myanmar, it's meant that a lot of students and young people have not been able to prioritize their education. Either it's not been safe for them to walk to school,
Mhm.
um, it's not been safe in their village, so they've not been able to go to school. And then for people who have decided to leave Myanmar and come to Thailand, um, yeah, it's also just a massive interruption to their studies, traveling far to some other place. And I met a lot of students who were in grades that were actually lower than their age just because they had missed out on maybe a year or 2 years of study because of the political instability in their own country. So it's a massive inconvenience or interruption to them pursuing education, and that's something that Peach is trying to address in their work with them.
No, yeah, definitely. I can only imagine how difficult it is to like be able to balance education or really even think about education when going through like such instability, that Myanmar kind of currently has, especially over like since 2021. So it's been like 3 years now, and it's
Yeah.
still just like unsure of where, like if they can ever return home or just how their lives are going to change.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very uncertain future for the country. So then for individuals, it's like, oh, yeah, it must be hard.
No, definitely. Yeah, so I guess what was your personal experience like when you visited like the site and all of these like 14 schools with Ruth?
Yeah, so I feel, yeah, my experience was really positive
Mm,
overall. Yeah, I was really impacted by the stories of a lot of the schools. One in particular, there's a school called New Blood, and yeah, at the beginning, at the genesis of the school, it was basically um, rainforest or forest
mm,
area.
hmm.
There were no buildings, no classrooms, and people
Oh
just turned
wow.
up. Yeah, I know. People just turned up. People turned up from Myanmar, had come to Thailand, and turned up at that area, and the principal of the school told them, if you want to learn, you're going to have to build your own class. So the first students built the classrooms themselves before they could
Oh
even
wow.
learn. I know, I was like, I could not imagine me having to do that when I went to school.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I just think it's interesting to see that all of the schools I went to came or began or came out of a need that people saw in the community of young refugees without a school, without the option to study, needing a place to study, and people in the community, ex-teachers from Myanmar who had also fled, people who had an education and just wanted to teach, decided to create these schools and create a place for kids to learn. That wasn't necessarily a story of all the schools, but yeah, for sure, they were all a response to seeing that there was a need for children to be educated.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing because I didn't know that they had to build like their own classrooms.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so wow, yeah, that's very impressive, honestly. And just like thinking about like the community kind of that forms out of these situations and how they still are able to come together to like further the education of like their children or just like themselves.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's just education is such an important part of just like everyday life. And it's really
Hmm.
amazing to see like what people will do to get an education.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as a photographer, going on this trip, what do you think were your main goals? And were there any specific techniques you wanted to use to capture the stories of these students?
Hmm. I think for me, one of the initial goals was basically just to understand the situation a little bit more and hopefully portray the kind of overview of what's happening. Speaking for myself, I hadn't seen a lot about Myanmar refugees in Thailand, apart
Mhm.
from stories about the Rohingya or stories about the refugee camp there that's there. So I
Mhm.
really had very limited knowledge about this, and I was sort of assuming that an audience might also have limited knowledge. And so I wanted to sort of give them a window into some of the issues that are affecting this community, but also sort of give face to the different people, different actors in the situation. So the students, the teachers, give them the opportunity to communicate, yeah, what they want people to know about their situation. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I focused a lot on portraits. So I did some portraits of the teachers. I tried to do portraits of teachers at each school and
Mhm.
learn more about their stories. I also, yeah, tried to photograph or do portraits of students and ask their stories, how long they'd been in Thailand, what they wanted in the future, what their dreams were for the future. Um,
Mm.
and also, I sort of experimented with something a little bit new. So it was really interesting for me to see that in Mae Sot, you are there, you are on the border with Myanmar. So you're on the
Mhm.
border with a state called Karen State, located in Myanmar. And so a lot of the time, you're driving in areas and you can see Myanmar, like over the
Oh.
hills, or yeah,
Mhm.
past a river. It's so close. And I even saw some people on the river coming from Myanmar into Thailand.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah. And so I asked some of the students and teachers if they would want to write down something, what they thought about when they thought about their home, because
Mm.
it's so close, they're in a
Mhm.
different country, but it's so close, and just wanted to see if they wanted to talk about how that felt. And so a lot of them did write down, yeah, some of their thoughts about their country, what they've lost, and what
Mm.
their hopes are for the future. And so I was able to put that on some images where Myanmar is visible, in the photos. And so that was something new for me, but I felt like it was a creative way of sort of including their voice in the
Mhm.
photographs as well.
Definitely, yeah. And I've had the opportunity to look at some of those pictures, and I think they're so powerful. And honestly,
Mm.
just having like these students and these teachers be able to kind of like contribute their own like thoughts to these photographs with their
Mhm.
writing, I think really just kind of adds another level of like dimension to the work.
Yeah,
Because you can really see like what they're feeling and um, just kind of like how they feel about their situation currently.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then I guess was there any specific photo you took or a subject you came across that left a lasting impact on you?
Yeah, so I have two.
Okay,
I thought of
great.
two. So the first one is a photo I took of a 16-year-old girl. I'll
Mhm,
call her Naomi.
mhm,
Um, but I took a picture of her in one of the classes at the Peach summer camp. And it's a
mhm,
picture and she's well, yeah, I'll tell a little bit about her story.
mhm,
She has been in Thailand for around a year. She used to live in Karen State in Myanmar with her
mhm,
grandmother. So her grandmother was her primary caregiver because her parents had always been working in Thailand. So there's a really strong connection, I feel like, with people from Myanmar and people from Thailand.
mhm,
Um, and one day, fighting came to her village. Yeah, she woke up and there was sounds of bombs and gunfire. And her grandmother decided that it would be safest if she also left for Thailand. So she left for Thailand and she's been boarding, living at the KKB school in Mae
mhm,
Sot for around a year.
mhm.
And yeah, the photo is of her playing heads up with her
Oh.
friends in the class. And she's smiling. She's trying to help them guess the answer. And yeah, it really impacted me because, yeah, despite everything she's gone through, all the experiences that she's had, she's still having fun with her friends in
Mhm,
a classroom. And yeah, she's super confident. She's super optimistic about the future. Um, she loves to speak English, so she would practice English with me. And I
mhm,
just feel like the photo gets across, yeah, her potential, the possibilities that are still there for her in her future. And I think that's been possible through the work that Peach has been able to do. And yeah, just the possibilities of, yeah, she's in school and she's still learning and yeah, she's
mhm.
preparing for her future. So that really impacted me.
Yeah, that's honestly like such a strong image as well. I feel like being able to like show that Naomi is able
Mm,
to just like find joy in her life
mm,
after everything that she's gone through. Um and yeah, that she's still optimistic and she cares about her education. It really just like kind of shows like all the stuff that like Peach is doing and just how education is just so important and just
mm,
having like this um, opportunity in your life to, yeah,
mm.
like to learn and just to make a better life for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I forgot to add, like while I was there, she
Mhm.
was just starting to be supported by Peach. So they were helping to
Oh, okay.
pay her fees.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was really cool. Like she's so bright. Yeah, she's such a character and I feel like she has a bright future, but it was also really encouraging to see that yeah, Peach is now going to be supporting her. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
And what was the other uh lasting
Yes.
impact? Yeah.
Yeah. So, the other picture that and person that really stood out to me was a teacher. His name's Johnny. He had come to Mae Sot in 2010 from Myanmar. And yeah, he was one of the students that had to build his own classroom. So he said he just
Oh.
arrived. Yeah,
Hmm.
he just arrived and he was told he needed to build his classroom, and he did. And then he finished his education and he decided to become a teacher.
Hmm.
And one of his dreams is to return to Myanmar. His parents are currently in an internally displaced person camp in Myanmar, and his dream is to go back and create a school in that camp. Um, and yeah, I felt like he is just another example uh, of the amazing teachers that I got to meet, um, who are, yeah, not accepting of the current status quo in Myanmar. They're not accepting like that, oh, the normal is just going to be war and
Hmm.
there's not going to be a future for the next generation. They really want to pour back into the young generation and teach them and help them with their education.
Hmm.
Um, Extremely self-sacrificing. I think Johnny was being supported with Peach by with a being supported by Peach with a salary, a small salary, but a
Hmm.
lot of the teachers aren't supported with a salary at all. or have to
Mm.
take a second job. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I was just really encouraged. Johnny is an example of many of the teachers who are extremely self-sacrificing, um, and just invested in educating the next generation of people in Myanmar.
Yeah. No, honestly, I truly believe like teachers are some of the most like underrated um kind of just like professions in the world. Like
Yeah.
they build such a like strong foundation for future generations and students, but oftentimes I feel like they're not acknowledged enough. Especially just
Yeah.
like when it comes to situations like in like Myanmar and Thailand where they're not really even getting paid, but they're still doing it because like they want to help other students and just want to like give back to the community.
Hmm.
Like the teacher that like you come across wanting to go back to Myanmar to start his own school.
Yeah.
I think that's honestly just so like admirable. Um,
Yeah,
and
and it
just
really,
yeah.
sorry, it really
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
me
of
think
course.
as well about like the teachers who decided to teach him, like the
Mm,
impact that that has had on his
hmm
life, and now he's able to teach kids, but also like if when and if he goes back to Myanmar and is able to teach in a school in an internally displaced camp, like what impact is that going to have on the future generation? I just
mm.
love thinking about like yeah. The impact of what that's going to have for countless numbers of people.
No, yeah, exactly. Like there's just such a strong impact left by teachers on just like so many people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an amazing thing to see. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and I guess looking at your works together or just like in this exhibition, what do you hope your message will be? And what do you want the audience to take away from your photographs?
Hmm. So overall, I really would love for people to come back from the photos, having seen them, with just a greater understanding of the issues impacting this community in Thailand and how Peach is trying to help them. So I
Hmm.
hope they'll have this understanding from the photos better than they did before. And also, yeah, if they hear about Myanmar in the news or online, they can kind of connect these stories with what they're hearing as well. But yeah, I think personally, I would love if these photos bridge a gap, or connect communities, throughout the world with this community in Thailand, and just yeah, that people would see. Yeah, the human faces behind this crisis, the crisis that's happening in Myanmar, and the displacement that's happening as well. And lastly, I hope I hope that these photos will serve as a document about the heroes that I got to meet in Thailand, specifically the teachers, who, despite the uncertainty of the future of their country, are deciding to remain hopeful and help children with their education so that they can go back to Myanmar and rebuild it in the future.
Yes, for sure.
Mhm.
And I think definitely your pictures are also strong and powerful, and the message behind them is just truly just I think is able to kind of just like transcend language and like country borders, to really just reach like people of all backgrounds out there.
Mm.
I think what really connects everyone to these photos is just like the raw emotions and these stories that stem from the photos.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel
And
like
yeah.
so
Oh
yeah,
no,
I feel
continue
like
on.
we've all or yeah, I feel like most of us have an experience of going to school and
Mm,
our childhood and things like that. And I just hope that yeah, these pictures, can make us think, oh, like I can imagine if that was my daughter, if that was my son,
mm,
if that was my student. So I hope the photos can help with that as well.
definitely, definitely. And yeah, I'm greatly looking forward to this art exhibition. I know both Givology and Peach Foundation are so lucky to have you as our photographer and just for doing this project. with
Hmm.
us. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Thank you. I've really benefited and I found it so interesting and beneficial to get a chance to be part of this project with you guys.
Yes, of course. And again, we're so lucky to have you. Um, yeah, and I guess that concludes today's podcast episode with Givology Impact Series. Um, Stay tuned for more information on our exhibition to be hosted online and in person. And again, thank you so much, Rayna, for joining us today.
Thank you.